Hey, welcome to Two Across, the podcast where two friends on opposite sides of the Atlantic get together and catch up over a crossword. I'm Rob Cole, exceptionally sitting not in Montreal, Canada, but in Kathmandu, Nepal.
And I'm Theo Bosanquet, still rooted in London, England. Hello.
Rooted in London. I'm rootless, as it were.
Right, tell me about Nepal, Rob. What takes you there?
I'm here for work. I haven't been here in 21 years. I was here in 2002 just to trek during the Maoist insurgency. And it has changed a lot. And the one noticeable change is there are an intensely large number now of motorbikes and cars, whereas there were always a few. Now, I've never seen anything quite like it. And I've been to a few cities like this.
Wow.
It's a choked place.
I've never been, and I would love to go at some point. It also means the fundamental premise of our podcast is undermined, but I'm going to let you off.
Yeah, we're a trans-Himalayan podcast today, I think.
Trans-Himalayan, very nice. It has a certain glamour to it, I think. That
It does.
How's life generally?
Yeah, it's okay. Haven't been traveling actually for a while for work. And so this is the first time kind of getting away from life and kids. And it's actually a rude shock because you just kind of get stuck in your routine in your world and all your sort of chorelets that you have to do to get through an average day. And you decry that aspect of your life. And then you lose that because you go somewhere and all of a sudden you miss it intensely, which is a strange phenomenon.
I always find it takes me about 12 hours of being away from the family to begin getting that sort of itch again. And you think, hang on, where are those small people that always make demands on me? And where are those rooms that were so familiar to me? And where's that routine? Because of course, so much of parenting young children is routine and being in, one place for extended periods of time. And as soon as you uproot yourself, it all goes out of whack. And then those early itchings for them sort of quickly grow into yearnings, and then you just think, I've got to see them again. And then you get home, and usually on the other side, it takes about 5 minutes before I'm itching to be to be elsewhere again. You
return to baseline of get me the hell out of here. It's not always like that, but there's this awful theory that I'd read some part in the last 6 months or so about how we regulate each other. And so when you're in a long-term relationship or you're in a family dynamic, your homeostatic regulation of just about everything from emotions, but also physiologically starts to get in sync with and relate to and depend on the individuals with whom you're in close proximity. And in one part, that's sort of comforting, and in another, it's absolutely terrifying. So they use that to explain why, for instance, a couple who've been married for a long time and one kicks off, the other isn't long to follow. Someone will get hit by a bus and then 2 weeks later, someone falls dead at some unknown cause. So anyway.
Yeah. I'm enjoying that it's only taken to episode 2 for you to raise the topic of homeostatic. What was the phrase? You're going to have to run it by me again.
I think it was regulation.
Yes, homeostatic regulation. I love that. I'm going to be Googling that after we finish. Now,
I was just biting my tongue, resisting the urge to get into homeostasis in our first episode, but I just thought maybe we should make that an episode 2 kind of thing.
Always leave them wanting more. That's our mantra. So you're presumably not, you're in Kathmandu, so you're in the climbing epicenter of the world. Are you surrounded by, keen explorers in backpacks and corporate types?
I am. And this is a total return to my mid-20s because I've come back to Tamel, which is the part of Kathmandu where the hikers and the trekkers stay. It's a touristy place, but it's a backpacker touristy place, not a well-heeled spot. And so it's full of a lot of people who are stopping in for 2 or 3 days to plan a trek and then heading out. A lot of dreadlocked people on their gap year and people like that. And it does make me realize that I'm not 25 anymore in a certain way, but it also makes me realize that after this week, I'm going to go change my part of town for the next time I'm back in town because I think I'm looking for something a bit more quiet. Here is where I would have liked to be when I wanted to be in the action. And now I just want a bit of peace and quiet and a nice night's sleep at the end of a hard day. So
Yeah, I can again sympathize with that feeling. I, as you know, turned 40 fairly recently. And amongst my midlife ponderings was this idea that I haven't done an epic journey. I haven't ticked off a significant milestone. So it very briefly crossed my mind that I would try and get to Everest Base Camp, and that would be my epic journey. But then it very quickly was supplanted by the thought that actually, in this day and age, there's nothing particularly special about that to the point that it could almost be seen as a bit tawdry, a bit corporate, a bit dreadlock gap year.
Yeah.
And I just thought, no, I don't want to add to the the multitude of footprints and rubbish that are now strewn on that poor mountain in the name of people finding themselves.
Self-actualizing on the slopes of Sagarmatha. And we can keep climbing slopes, right? Because once you do base camp, then someone says, well, I did camp 2 or I did camp 3. And then you meet someone who climbed it. And then you meet someone who did all 12 of the high peaks or whatever. And it turns out that the more you pursue any one of them, you can't leave your douchebagness behind. That follows you.
That will follow you up the mountain along with your Sherpas. In fact, it will be carried by your Sherpas along with your multitudes of luggage.
Exactly. They will feel the weight of your douchebaggery, and it gets heavier with every atmosphere you lose,
Yeah. Excuse me, sir, your emotional baggage is just too heavy for me. Can we please turn back and get you some therapy instead? Yeah.
Yeah. We think this would be much more cost effective.
On which note, we must try and do a crossword.
Yes.
And I'm going to set a timer once again. Puzzle 156, once again from the Collins Crossword Challenge, Book 2. So,
The challenge begins. Am I reading and you're filling? Is that what we're doing again?
Yeah, let's go with that. I think you're better off being the reader.
Perfect. So here's the first one, which is going to expose again a difference between North American and British terminology. So we have an expert in law. Well, actually, I was thinking it would be someone in, a lawyer, but actually this might be something consistent between the two.
Maybe we should move to one down so we get the first letter.
Well, I think I might have it. I think that one across may be a jurist.
Oh, wow. And then that would make one down, the clue is precious stones, would make that jewels.
I think so. And if we want to further extend the benefits of what we've just opened, we could take your W from jewels and apply it to 9 across, which is Occidental, 7 letters.
And that's Occidental with an O. That's not just Rob's Canadian accent making accidental sound like Occidental. So Occidental.
At some point, we're going to get into the O's, the Canadians and O's. We're not going to do that now.
No, let's not be cliche. Not this early on. That's some useful material to keep in the back pocket for when we really do run out of steam.
Episode 3.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Any guesses for Occidental 7 letters beginning with W?
Oh, I think that's our Western.
Western.
As 2 Occidentals, even though one is presently somewhere in the East.
The Occidental death of an anarchist. Okay, 2 down.
Electrical component starting with R if jurist is to be believed, and second or third letter is a T. So that would be electrical component R space T.
I think the third letter's an S, Rob.
Oh, sorry, an S.
Yeah.
So ERS, electrical component. Let's come back to that, unless you have a bright idea.
No, I don't. By the way, my wife's feedback on the first episode was she loved it, of course, but she said it's quite difficult that the listener can't see the puzzle. And although we are going to share the puzzle on our website when it's created, we should probably try and do a slightly better job of actually explaining to the listeners the sort of general shape of the crossword as we go, so that they can shout at the transistor radio in frustration.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll make that my role to the extent that I can to call out the number of letters and what we have.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to pass on electrical component.
Yeah, let's take a pass. Let's try 3 down. So our first letter would be an S, and it is oozes, 5 letters long. So I think I have one on that. It could be seeps.
Oh, yeah. Good word. A good sort of onomatopoeic word. Seepage.
Seepage, exactly. It's the sort of thing you associate with what I'd call a landfill.
Yes. Some sort of slightly green and vaguely toxic fluid which is running down the slopes of a once green and pleasant land.
And polluting a formerly pristine brook that was once full of trout.
Dustbin of a world.
Yeah.
I've been watching the latest and possibly, I hate to say it, but last David Attenborough series on the BBC. It's not going to, they're not going to let him not
Die?
make another one, are they? But no, they're not going to let him die. I mean, they're just going to, take him to Antarctica and bury him in the ice and dig him up. And
Well, they don't even need to do that. They can clone his voice and his likeness, and he just hand all of his rights to Disney, and they'll recreate a David Attenborough for the ages.
yeah, you're absolutely right. In this world of artificial intelligence and augmented reality, we can surely keep David going. I'm probably, by the way, going to get some kind of extradition order just for suggesting that David Attenborough be buried in ice. So if there are any knocks on the door, that's probably what it is. Right. 11 across enumerates 5 letters beginning with L, ending in S. So if you enumerate something, you oh, that's
Hmm.
no.
Lists.
Oh, lists. Okay, well done. And that gives us the electrical component. That gives us the 5th letter.
Yeah, it's a resistor.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to get the
Sorry,
next one before
listeners.
you because I'm getting left in the dust here, Rob. Country in Southeast Asia. 5 letters, R in the middle. Oh, I was going to say Borneo, but that's 6 letters.
Well, it depends if we're in the era of the old empire or going with modern country names.
You're going to say Burma,
I was thinking that.
which is where my grandfather fought in Burma in the war.
Did he?
He did, and he got dysentery and got very ill on that long retreat through the jungle.
Did he join Alec Guinness in that camp building the bridge?
Fortunately, he evaded the camps. Otherwise, I may not be here today. But it is an amazing story. And typically of that generation, you'd ask him about it as a child, and he would just tell you in very matter-of-fact ways that, of course, my best friend got shot right next to me, and then I, carried on through the jungle. And he was an entomologist, so he studied bugs. And the whole reason he volunteered to go and fight in the Far East was that he wanted to go and study the local fauna as he was there. I think he saw it as a bit of a jaunt, and then of course, it all spiraled rather beyond his expectations. And anyway, he was an amazing man, but he died many years ago.
Did his war stories all end with, and it was good fun?
Yeah, there was always an unspoken horror to the whole thing that he obviously didn't want to really go into. As a kid, I was always fascinated by the sort of battle element of it all. And I would sort of ask him, so how does a battle really work? What were the sort of physics of all of that? And he would do his best to explain to me. But the bit I didn't really understand at the time was just the sort of fundamental horror and sort of psychological hell of the entire experience, which is only now as an adult that I really think about that. And of course, in those days, it wasn't the case that everybody came back and immediately got a program of therapy and the sort of tools to speak about their experiences. It was just a case of, back to Blighty and carry on with family life. Which, anyway, I'm now diverging horribly away from the crossword. But he was a really interesting man who I may talk about again.
And of course, in that period, he came home to a leader who ran the country with the firm attitude that going to war and having things like that was just a lot of jolly good fun, a lot of adventures. I mean, the young
Absolutely.
Churchill stories of him on the Boer War, getting captured and escaping and going and fighting in the Sudan and wanting to get to the front of battle and not miss out the fun. That was the spirit of the era.
So my grandpa was born in 1918, so the last year of the First World War. So he was sort of born into the wake of this absolutely seismic conflict. And then at 21, he was thrust into another one. And that's just extraordinary to me. And yet came out the other side of it as a sort of, as I remembered him, a sort of cardigan wearing, warm presence who could tell me these stories and but they were sort of a generation of alchemists, weren't they? They turned all this horror into domestic, I won't say bliss, because I know it wasn't blissful for a lot of people, but there was a concerted effort in the wake of all that to say, right, now we focus on family life and home life and making the best of what comes next, I suppose. Anyway, is it Burma? Are we going to put Burma?
But well, let's pencil it in. Why don't we just verify that with 15 down, which is very young children. If it was Burma, it would start with B and it would,
Well, it's babies.
well, yeah, that's very young children. So that makes sense.
And well, I know all about babies, but you definitely know all about babies, having had 3.
Yeah, but they're a lot older now. And the wonderful thing about biology is it hardwires you to forget. I remember having been traumatized at times and having been traumatizing, moreover, in my inability to deal at times with the life that I had helped to create or the lives. But you don't really remember it. You just sort of focus on the here and now and you forget all about that time. Not to say that I would willingly welcome a baby into my life ever again and want to be anywhere near their company other than just to sort of look at how cute they are and make a face and see if they smile and then, move along, baby.
Admire from afar.
Yeah.
It's a strange thing when your broodiness leaves you. I guess it's a bit like when your libido leaves you, that it's just something that was there and now is there no more. And you think, actually, yeah, that itch is firmly scratched. And now what next?
We never talked about this, but were you actually broody? I mean, was there a feeling inside of you that said, I really want to have kids. I want to have babies. Was there a visceral sort of sense?
I think so. I remember as a much younger person, as a teenager and so on, in my mind, I always thought, oh, I'll probably have loads of kids. I just felt this innate feeling that I wanted to be and would be a dad, and probably a dad to the tune, like, one of those old sort of Victorian figures with 8 children trooping through the hallway. But then time goes on and increasingly you become aware that it's not obviously a done deal. And firstly, you have to meet someone who will have those aforementioned children with you. And then you've got to go through all the work of actually bringing them up and looking after them. And so quickly my number whittled down to what it is now, which is 2. And that for me felt like enough. For a long time, I think we just thought we'd have 1, and then that sort of feeling returned. And it is a broodiness, I think so. I think that would be the right word. I definitely sort of yearned for it, I suppose. But as I say, that yearning has gone. But I do now have a dog who's in some way a sort of flower baby.
He's taken the slot.
He's taken the slot. Yeah. I didn't have enough capacity for another kid, but I did think, oh, maybe a dog would be nice. And he is. He's by my side right now, in fact, young Zeus. But again, we'll talk about him maybe another time.
It is the classic choice, though. I know a few people with 3 kids, and I know quite a few people with 2 kids and a dog. But I don't know many people with 3 kids and a dog.
Good point. I'm sure
If
they're
any.
out there. In fact, I know they're
Well,
out there. But they're often very wealthy, with lots of people to help them with said brood and canines, or I think they're maybe just very, very committed to this idea of a big family, and that's good for them. I have a cousin who has 8 children, and I feel both admiration and bafflement, really, at the prospect of that. But apparently, that whole idea of an ecosystem where they do begin to look after each other, that does happen. Anyway, we're now over halfway through. We are, and we are definitely not halfway through the crossword.
We got stalled on babies, and that is just...
We did. Burma and babies has been the theme of this podcast. Okay, 18 across. Widen. 7 letters beginning with B.
7. Broaden.
Broaden, yes. Okay, let's try and rattle through a few.
Okay, 19 down. Finished, complete. 4 letters, starting with the letter O. For our listeners at home, we get to the bottom of the crossword once we have this 4-letter thing, and we can start to explore the bottom left portion.
Finished, complete, beginning with O. See, I'm wondering if broaden is right, therefore, because surely that's done.
It's also a term in cricketing to do with what I believe we call an inning in baseball.
There was a Bernard Bosanquet who was a very famous cricketer who invented the googly bowl in cricket. Yeah, true story. In fact, in Australia, they still call it the Bosey in honour of my whatever he was. He wasn't a direct ancestor. It was a fairly tenuous connection, but I like to draw attention to it occasionally when it suits. Not that I'm any good at cricket myself.
The same Norman brought your name over to the British Isles.
Not Norman. Huguenot.
No.
Huguenot.
Fleeing religious persecution.
It's not what you know, it's Huguenot. As my article on the subject was titled several years ago when I did some work for a Huguenot charity in Spitalfields. There lies an interesting story, actually, the Huguenots, but we definitely don't have time to get into it now because we've got 12 minutes left.
Oh, crap. Okay. So, over being the cricket team.
Over, obviously.
Very young children ending in S. And then, so we have 21 across is wanders off or drifts, S space R, and then 3 spaces. It could be, to wander off from a nice marriage.
Oh, strays. Yeah.
Leave a nice warm marriage and all the happy babies and stray.
And dogs. But I'm gonna go a wandering for a while. I think that tension between the need to make a home and to wander sits at the heart of so many things. But again, we've got 11 minutes left.
And I'm going to, if we have 11 minutes, I'm going to diverge for 2 seconds because that is the odd thing that I'm feeling, definitely being somewhere I was when I was wandering, but now much older. And remembering being 6 months on my own, backpacking, hanging out with random people, and really comfortable and happy with that, to now being away from my constituents and kind of being like, I sort of want to be at home and, see what the kids are up to and help so-and-so with their math homework and stuff. And then I thought the 25-year-old me would be like, you douche.
Yeah. There's one of my favorite songs is San Diego Serenade by Tom Waits. Do you know it? There's a lyric in it where he says, I never saw my hometown till I stayed away too long. Never knew the melody till I needed the song. And I think that bit about the hometown is always, always, always struck a chord for me. Because I'm away from my hometown. I grew up in the Northeast and now I live down in London. And I always feel that sense of, being away too long. Anyway, 14 down, conveniently. 7 letters, second letter A, fourth letter D, ending in Y. Conveniently. I think the listeners are going to be shouting about this one. It's probably very straightforward, but
they may. Let's just take hurried and get that done. So that's 5 letters, hurried, and I don't think we have any letters for that.
No, we don't. Hurried, rush, No.
6 letters.
Hurried.
Ooh, I'm going to bust it open. Let's take 8
Go
down.
on.
I think we can do this. So the third last
Oh,
letter
yeah.
of 8
Yeah.
down is an N. It's very long, and it comprehends 11 letters.
It understands.
It is understands. So now I think that would make, if we go back to our hurried, that would be an S is the third slot of hurried. So space,
5
space,
letters.
S, space, space.
We can get another letter of that one. So maybe we should come back to it.
5 down.
Without hope or starkly, 7 letters.
So you could think like bleak or something, but that's much shorter than 7 letters.
Bleak. You could do bleakly, but is that
Does anyone
without
say
hope?
that? I don't think so. Let's go to the top right. So for listeners at
Okay.
home, we've gotten all of the left side and we haven't done any of the right. It's an interesting crossword because 8 down divides the crossword in 2 completely, or understands. So maybe we'll find understanding on the other side of that. Lessons.
4 across, lessons, 6 letters. So it's not reduces.
No, I was thinking that too.
Eases. That doesn't fit
Yes.
either. No, that's 5 letters.
Shoot. What's 6 down? Journey is 4 letters. If you have no, it could be a trek, a trip,
A trip. Let's try trip. I think it's more likely to be trip.
abates for lessons. So that puts a T in the third last slot.
That is beautifully done. I love that word as well.
And we have the B for bleakly, oddly enough, in the number 1 slot on 5 down. So we haven't.
So it could be bleak. It could be bleakly. Let's pencil bleakly.
Well, wait, let's look at 12 across. If it is bleakly, then that would be an L. And the clue is views, observes, 5.
Looks.
So I think it's bleakly.
We're getting there, Rob. I suddenly feel hope. We've got 6 minutes, 42 seconds.
Oh, crap. Okay, we got to move. So let's look at 7 down. So that would be starting with S, exhausts, 6 letters, starts with S, and the last letter is an S as well.
Yeah.
Which would make sense. Now we could get its third last letter by finding impassive, 7 letters. First letter, it would be a D.
You may have inadvertently got the answer. No, I was going to say you got the answer by saying sense, because it could be senses, but that does not fit the clue at all.
No.
Which is exhausts. Strips. No.
Let's try 10 across. So if impassive starting with D and ending we don't know. Oh, and bleakly, it would be
Third letter A, and then 5th letter. If it's trip, the 5th letter would be P. So
D space S space P space space?
no, D space A space P.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
What's the clue again?
Impassive. What's the difference between impassive and passive? Is it the same relationship as impossible to possible? I think it might be. Or someone who's impassive is actually quite aggressive.
Is it like extinguish and what's that example where you add 2 letters at the beginning? It's exactly the same.
Disextinguish?
No, it can't be that, can it? Because extinguish and...
The relationship between regardless and irregardless?
I know the example I'm thinking of. Flammable and inflammable.
Right. Yes,
Same
exactly.
meaning. So is this an example like that where impassive and passive...
Someone who's impassive strikes me as diffident. but maybe I've got that completely wrong.
That doesn't
Okay,
fit though either.
let's. Mhm.
Rob, we're in trouble here. We've got 4 minutes. Let's do
We are in
13
trouble.
down.
Oh
This is
crap!
quite a
I
biggie.
think
Okay, common salad dressing, 5, 3. So it's 2 words, 1, 5, 1, 3, beginning with O.
could be olive something, but
Olive oil?
olive oil.
Let's go with that because we haven't got time to think
No,
of
fair enough.
alternatives.
So olive oil. That means we've got brings into
Oh,
action. Oh, go ahead.
okay. So that makes 17 across, which is evil spirit, 5 letters, middle letter V. That must be devil.
That's got to be devil. 16 down. Strong gusts of wind. Second letter L. 6 letters. Blasts. A blast
Yes,
of
very
wind.
nice.
22 across. Fashions ends in S. Second last letter would be an L if olive oil is to be believed.
So it's fashions in the sense of makes. I would
I think so.
expect.
I think so.
17 down is storage place, 5 letters beginning with D. If it's devil,
Depot? Depot?
depot. That's a very North American word. Which gives fashions 6 letters, second letter T, fourth letter L, sixth letter S. Fashions.
Styles.
Styles. Oh, God.
Okay.
2 minutes, 2
So
minutes.
now we're moving. Okay, so if styles is there, so then that confirms olive oil. We've got 20 across, 17 was evil spirit we've got, and 16 down, blast for strong gusts of wind.
Okay, we've got 20 across. Brings into action, 7 letters. First letter D, third letter P, fifth letter O, final letter S. Brings into action. Oh, deploys. Yeah.
All right, give us another one. Let's get this done.
Okay, 14 across. Hurried. We've now have so it's 5 letters, third letter S, and a final letter of Y. Hurries.
Final letter of Y, huh?
Something Lee.
Hasty.
Is that hasty? Yes.
Okay, so now we got conveniently starting with H. A with Burma. So H, A, space, D, space, 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 space.
Conveniently. Handily.
Like how we're destroying this crossword.
40 seconds to get 2 clues. 10 across. Impassive. First letter D, third letter A, fifth letter P, and 7 down. Exhausts. First letter S, final letter S.
Oh my lord,
Exhausts.
okay.
Come on. Exhausts.
We should be able to get these.
I know all about being exhausted. I feel like, no, we're out of time, Rob. That's a fail.
Oh my gosh.
That's the alarm.
We've had our first fail, punishment for too much random talkery, and inability to get really easy clues. There are at least 4 people right now that are berating us very loudly into their earbuds, or
Our parents are livid.
they are livid.
Yeah.
I knew they'd amount to nothing.
Okay. Well, look, because we failed, we can't now carry on. I have to turn to the answers.
Oh man, that hurts.
This is tricky, actually. I think this is an example where the clue is a little bit of a it's tenuous. So the answer for exhausts is spends.
Okay.
And then 10 across.
D space P space A space N, is that it?
Yeah, exactly. Now this I really question. So the clue obviously was impassive. Oh, actually, no, maybe it does work. Anyway, the answer is deadpan.
Oh, deadpan. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel I should have got that given my, my day job as a theatre journalist, but yeah, deadpan. But I think that means we did get everything else right. So silver linings, Rob. Yeah, jurist, abates, jewels, resistor, Burma. It was Burma. Babies, strays. Yeah, everything else right.
So this is a politically incorrect crossword. It's like having Bombay or Madras or something in your crossword, right?
We need to cancel Collins.
We need to cancel Collins.
I'm going to tweet about this.
I think Collins is recycling crosswords from the 1960s.
The very thought, Rob. You're saying in their compilation of quick crosswords, book 2, that they're leaning quite heavily on the company archive. I just refuse to be such a cynic. Incidentally, I'm glad that my grandfather came up in the course of this, because one of the reasons I have such a fond association with quick crosswords is because as a kid, whenever I went to visit my grandparents who lived in Newcastle, we would habitually sit round the kitchen table and do the Guardian quick crossword together. And that was such a fond memory for me. And I would always try and contribute. But of course, the grown-ups would inevitably power on. And I mean, they'd let us have a go at one or two. But yeah, we'd sort of sit there and drink peppermint tea and Ribena and do crosswords. So there you go.
But is that not the measure that we make of ourselves as men or as individuals? Maybe that's a sexism that I should avoid. But as people, you sit in the kitchen at the feet of the parents as they do the crossword and yell at the crews, and you really want to get one or two, and you yell them out, and then eventually they say, "Oh, go play," because you're yelling out
Yeah.
ridiculous things at some point. And then you start to do them, and then you have in your head your pace car is one of those adults. So for me, it's the old man. My dad was an inveterate crossword doer, and he always had ones folded over with a pen attached to it so that he could go back to it, and he had his writing implement ready to get those ones he couldn't get. And he was always the standard for me. Like if I could ever get as good at crosswords as my father was. But of course, I'm now 19 years or so younger than my dad was when he passed away. Am I where he was at my age? And if he were still alive, would I be crosswording equally with him?
Yeah.
I won't have that answer, but I think that's something that you ask yourself with your pace car. And then the worst thing is probably the moment in your life where you do.
Yeah.
You're either your parents getting older, or your whoever it was that was your crossword model when you were younger, or you're getting to your apex. And it's a bittersweet moment.
It's a paternal duty to intellectually intimidate one's offspring with crosswords. I remember my father, actually, who is a very able man in intellectual terms and is very good at cryptic crosswords, and would no doubt be fairly appalled that we're only doing quicks. But he had an older relative that we would go and visit. And I remember this older relative really sort of putting my dad on the spot with these clues and saying, come on, 30 seconds. What is it? What is it? And my dad was suddenly become a schoolboy again in front of my eyes. He was just reduced to this sort of nervous boy trying to get the answer right in class. And that can have that effect on people. My daughter, I think, is quite good with words and reading in a language, and she does enjoy a crossword, but of course she would never allow me to intellectually intimidate her.
No, I don't think she would allow you to intimidate her in just about anything, and never will.
Very true. It's her birthday actually later this week. She's turning 10, which makes me
Oh
feel
man,
very old. Yeah,
you're getting into the second decade.
I know, it's big stuff, big milestones, which brings us nicely back to Kathmandu, Rob. On that note, I hope you really enjoy the rest of your stay there. We will no doubt record again while you're over there, because I think you were there for quite a while, aren't you?
This is 2.5 weeks. So yeah, I would be probably do another one next week. And then I'm back in Canada as of, I think, the week after midweek, and then back for the
Okay.
Christmas holidays and all that fun stuff, and the dawning of the great winter that awaits.
So normal transatlantic crosswording can recommence at that point.
Absolutely. But maybe one more Trans-Himalayan podcast before we get back to that.
Just for good measure. We'll go to the base camp of crosswords. That doesn't work.
And hopefully do a better job than we did today.
Yeah. Yes, good point. Let's not forget that that makes us. We should keep a tally. That's one all.
1-1.
We are. Yeah.
I'll hang a prayer flag for better luck in our next show.
Please do. We will need it. On which note, goodbye.
Two Across is an original podcast by Theo Bosenket and Rob Cole. Theme music by Enthusiasts. If you want to support the podcast, consider organizing a knitting circle or Tupperware party, inviting everyone over, and then play the podcast really loud and gush over how excellent it is and how wonderful they are. Especially that Theo.